Hello, and welcome to the Path of Most Persistence. This is a place where we hear and share tenacious stories of overcoming obstacles with our partners who dare to share a bit of their own personal paths. Colonel Mark H. Johnson currently serves as the director of the Professors of Practice program in the College of Engineering and an associate professor of practice of industrial distribution at Texas A&M University. He previously served as the director of cyber solutions for Camber Corporation. Colonel Johnson served in the U.S. Army from 1979 to 2008. Prior to his active duty retirement, Colonel Johnson was the commander of the 1st Information Operations Command and deputy commander, Joint Information Operations Warfare Command. His assignments include service in Iraq to support the Operation Iraqi Freedom. Colonel Johnson is a class of 1978 graduate of Texas A&M with the B.S. in Business Administration as a distinguished military graduate. He is also a graduate of Central Michigan University with a Master of Science degree in Administration and a graduate of the U.S. Army War College. He is married to Laura Good Johnson. They have 2 children, both Aggies, and 6 grandchildren. Colonel Johnson, it is an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
This is so great. Our mutual colleague, Bruce, made the connection for us, and I'm always so appreciative when he does that because he brings to us individuals that are outstanding in every area. And as I did my study for this chat today, first of all, I could not acknowledge all your amazing achievements in my intro, but our audience will be able to find out more about you when we release our chat with your CV and your bio. But I'm always struck by individuals who serve, who have dedicated their life to service, especially in the military. And to start with that, can you tell us why? Tell me why you chose the military, specifically the Army.
Yeah, well, it was, again, I had an older brother that was class of 69 that unfortunately was killed in Vietnam in 1970. So he was kind of always my hero. So that was something that I wanted to do to kind of follow in his footsteps. And as I said on my retirement day, I served the rest of his career and my career, I felt, at the same time. And I didn't really think I was going to make an Army career. I was on an ROTC scholarship, so I was going to do my 4 years, take my A&M degree, and go become rich and famous or do something there. But I enjoyed what I was doing, and I like to think I was doing it pretty well. So 4 years became 29 years, and it was a great opportunity. I got to see and do things that I grew up in a small town up in northeast Texas that most of the people that I graduated from high school never got 100 miles from home. So when my wife and I would, come back and people go, well, why do you live there? Or you're where? So it became a lot of fun for both us as a couple and then for the kids. The kids got to see and do things that I could only dream about when I was their age there and stuff. So I like to think it was a family experience that we all enjoyed. And it's a type deal that serving in the military is a type deal you don't have to apologize, for what you've done. And since such a small percentage of America, even after 11 plus years of war, actually serve, it really puts you into a small kind of unique category. And then my son also served, so that made a neat from it. So to have another generation to be a part of that, so it was a type deal where as I got higher in rank, I could see that I could serve and help more people, and that was a neat part about that there. And I got to work with a lot of our allies. And then towards the end of the career, I took a team to Iraq, and that was something that was very important to me because I had missed many of the other deployments for different reasons. So I said, I'm going for this one there and everything, and that was a lot of fun. It's not that I wanted to go into combat for other than I was a soldier. I had put people in combat. It was my turn, and it was something that I enjoyed to do, and I brought everybody home, and that was very important to me.
Thank you for your service, back to your parents and dedication and service that your brother paid for our country, and of course the service of your son. But I want to go back a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Would you like to say your brother's name?
Yeah.
I'd like to be respectful that way.
Robert H. Johnson. I knew him as Bobby. His friends here at A&M knew him as Bob. And that's been one of the neat. This is my second time back at A&M. I taught ROTC in the mid '80s, and then, then also got to come back here. And I've got to meet a lot of people that knew him when he was here. So that's been a lot of fun for me to get to kind of fill some gaps in there and everything. And basically, I only had two objectives when I came into the Army. I wanted to be a paratrooper, and I wanted to serve in the 82nd Airborne because that's where my brother had served. And so first tour, I checked both those off the block, and I went, okay, I've done that. Now what?
Now what?
And so, then we went to Hawaii, and then came back here, and then went to Kansas, and then went to back to Fort Bragg again, and then went to England, and then Virginia, and to Texas, back to Virginia, and then back to Texas. So, again, it was, somebody says, well, when are you going to retire? And as someone told me early in my career, they said, you'll know when it's time.
Yes.
And they were exactly right, is that I had done everything that I wanted to do. I was ready for a change. So, again, I have no regrets. I had great jobs. I had great bosses. I'm not going to say that every day was sunshine and puppy dogs, but certainly it was a lot of fun. I got to work with some great people and had some great missions. And like I say, it was something I'm proud of. And again, it's not something that I started that I was going to spend a career, but I'm certainly glad that I did, because then it has opened up other opportunities, including getting to come back here to A&M. So I'm very thankful for the way things fell into place.
Oh, and we are so fortunate that you're back. How fortunate the university is to have you back. Again, I just want to take a step back because you've already made so many comments that I just want to follow up on.
Okay.
One of the comments you made was that this was your career, your service, and there isn't a need to make an apology. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes you hear people say, well, if I would have gotten this degree, I could have done this, or I went to work for this company for, some reason I didn't really want to, and you hear a lot of different things. And, I never felt one thing that sticks out. I remember I had been in the Army a couple of years, and I went back home for a wedding. And so I was in my, dress uniform, feeling pretty proud there and everything. Yes. And I remember somebody walked up to me and they go, Mark, didn't you graduate from A&M? I go, yeah. And he goes, couldn't you find a better job? Oh, and I didn't know to get mad or hurt, but I was just kind of like, there's no explanation that I can give that person is going to understand. So again, I knew in my heart I was doing what I was supposed to do. But I never forgot that person, and this was an educated person there and everything. But like I said, I never felt like I had wasted my life.
Thank you for taking the time to explain that. I knew you would have something illuminating to share. And on that comment, I think that is proof that no matter how educated some of us can be, ignorance is always abound.
No, you're exactly right. And it's funny, over the years is that, when we were in the middle of things in Iraq and Afghanistan, I would have people come up and thank me for my service, and that was always nice. And, and sometimes almost embarrassing. I said, well, where are you going? I said, well, I'm headed up to D.C. I'm not going into the fight there, although that can be a fight going up to the D.C. area. Sure. But, in fact, I remember after I'd retired, there was a young Air Force airman behind me, and somebody, was thanking them and everything. And I told him, I said, don't ever take that for granted. it's not always been that way. So, appreciate it and be thankful for it. Because again, like I say, I remember it wasn't always that way. So it's certainly nice. And then certainly for people like my brother and others that served in Vietnam, they certainly didn't get the same kind of response when they came home. So I was very thankful for the kind comments that people make.
That is so makes me quite emotional. Let's talk about this. So I know lots of politics surround those kinds of responses, but how are things changed? If you could just in maybe perhaps a lecture or just explaining to our general audience, why has there been a change with each conflict, with each war?
Yeah, I think a lot of it started Desert Storm, Desert Shield, because that's the first time that really the whole country became involved, because the way the Army and the military had been structured, we were very dependent on our National Guard and Reserve. So this meant that it wasn't just the active military that went to the fight. Your next door neighbor, the guy down the street, the lady that normally works at the bank. And so I think that was the first time that it kind of, harken back to World War II, where everybody was impacted either directly or indirectly. So I think that started it. And then, then I think it just became like, say, maybe people realized that we didn't get it right for Korean War and Vietnam people. Yes. I would hear people say, well, I don't support the war, but I support the troops and stuff. And I'd kind of go, I'm not sure how you walk that line there and everything. But, and again, it kind of is, there are always politics involved with any type of thing of this nature. But we who serve at the behest of our civilian leaders. And so we don't make the choices. We accomplish the mission to the best of our ability that we're provided to meet the needs of the country and the leaders.
And that's where, when I hear individuals such as yourself that have served our country, that's where it really makes me emotional, because that was never my choice to serve in that capacity, in that way. But I know there's a need, and I know there's such great sacrifice involved. So, to hear you explain it that way really means so much. And I think for so many of us that don't take the time to really think about it, or have never had someone within our family, it's hard to understand and maybe articulate, say the right things.
And again, it's like I say, I'm always thankful or appreciative when people say nice things, but something that you mentioned I want to circle back on about the sacrifice is that, I did what I did because I raised my right hand and swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. My family also made sacrifices, but they swore no oath. They took no contract. They did what they did because of their love for me. And that's something I always tell young officers and soldiers. I said, never take that for granted and never forget, because spouses are going to have to uproot themselves. Kids are going to have to move. I moved both of my kids their senior year in high school, which is one of those things people tell you, but they still love me. So I feel good about that one. And it worked out for both of them. But that's another thing I remind people is that I believe there's a special corner in heaven for military spouses, because, my wife has bought houses, bought cars, and raised kids when I was deployed and doing my job there and everything. And so I never forget that. And I'm always thankful and appreciative of the sacrifices my family made, not because they had to, not because they had a contract or an oath, but because of their love and support for me. And I always remind people, never take that for granted.
That's such a powerful message. To pivot just a bit, I want to know, now that you're a professor of practice, what does that mean? It's
and that's interesting. I mean, when I was told I was going to be one, I said, like everything, you Google it there. What is that there and stuff? Because certainly didn't have any when I was a student, graduate or undergraduate. Basically, we come, as opposed to a traditional tenured track that, goes through undergraduate, graduate, doctorate, and basically is in academia. We come from the professional track. In my case, primarily military, but I also worked for the government and industry. And so, as I describe it, it becomes a complementary education opportunity for the students. Mm-hmm. They already get the theory, the doctrine, the formulas and everything in a traditional, in this case, engineering education. But now you get the real world aspect of that. And the example that I give oftentimes is, if you were a civil engineer and I said, draw me a bridge with the following capabilities, you could knock it out in a napkin and say, here it is. And I go, okay, but now you have a budget, you have a timeline, and you have people requirement. Now design me that bridge. You're not going to violate any of the doctrine, theory, whatever, to build a safe bridge, but you're going to build a different bridge. Yes. And that's that experience that we bring. And so here in the College of Engineering, there's 103 of us in the program. So that's somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 years of experience that runs from, I've got 3 NASA astronauts. I've got the former head drilling engineer for Exxon. I've got people that were CEOs of their company, people like myself, retired senior military. So that type of knowledge and experience, I think, then helps that student be better prepared for the world after graduation.
Oh, I don't think there's anything that could be more educational. It's applicable, and you're also bringing about all those real world experiences that you just can't learn in a book.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I think it becomes, it's not one is better than the other, but now together, I think then the students get a better, well-rounded education, and I think and they appreciate that. And then not only from a education, or things that we can talk about in the classroom, but we also often have connections with our prior industry. Yes. And so if a student says, sir, I'm thinking about working for the XYZ company, and I go, Bob used to work for me. I'll give Bob a call. I'll connect you. And so those are things, because in addition to being whatever our profession was, we mentored people. Yes. That is the one common thing I think that we all bring, is we were mentors. We were developing the next generation of our company, our unit, whatever the case may be. And so we brought that into academia, that willingness and ability to sit down and talk to the students and to help students beyond just the classroom. And in fact, I often tell my students, you'll get your grade in my class at the end of the semester. I'll get my grade 2-3 years down the road when you call me or email and say thanks. Either something you did or something you said in class or something you taught me got me a promotion or got me an opportunity. And so, I kid the students. I said, I'm like the Hotel California. You can leave, but you can't, or you can check out, but you can never leave. Yes. Colonel's always going to be there.
I love that. And I think for an educator in any capacity, that's what we live for. Just to know that some bit of your work was a seed planted for the good.
No, I think you're right. And in fact, as I tell people, I said, being a leader is like being a parent. And they kind of go, what do you mean? I go, well, as a parent, you reach a point where you get more excited when your kids succeed and do something than anything you do. Yes. And as a leader, it's the same thing. When one of your people succeed, as an old boss said, you bask in their reflective glory, but you had a part of that. I don't get the recognition, but I know that I pushed him or her, or I did something that helped them achieve that. And that's when you go, yes.
That is, so, I don't think I've ever heard it put any better than that. Yeah. So I love that connection. Yeah. As far as mentorship, you mentioned that. Is there a mentor that you had that really stands out?
There were probably I had one boss that was probably the very best boss that I had, is that he gave me the opportunity to be in a position beyond, I should have been a major and I was a young captain, but he trusted me and gave me that opportunity. He underwrote some of my mistakes and errors and gave me a chance to grow into that position. And I've always remembered that. And as I've joked to him personally, I said, if he called me at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, "Can you be here at 6?" I said, "I'm on my way, sir." Because he was one of those, and I've had, bosses that you do things because you don't want to get yelled at, or you know what's going to happen if you don't. But thank goodness I had more bosses that you didn't want to disappoint them.
Yes.
You wanted them to look good, and you didn't want to be the cause because something you failed to do. And that's so much more fun to work in that kind of environment, as opposed to, when the phone, what did I do now? Or what am I going to get yelled at? As opposed to, making him look good, making him succeed. Right. And that's a lot of fun. And I tried to make sure that I was that kind of boss. As the saying is, I tried to make myself into the kind of boss that I would want to follow. And the thing is that you never know exactly, but again, that's the kind of the truth in the pudding. There is not what your unit or organization accomplishes, but those people that you had the privilege of leading. What did they think of you as a leader, and what difference did you make? Because I say a little prayer every day. I said, God, let me make a difference. Could be a little difference, could be a big difference. That's not for me to decide, but given the opportunity, and sometimes you don't know what the opportunity is. I mean, it could be something that just is insignificant to you, but for that individual student, it was what they needed at that point in time. And that's the fun part about being a professor, because I tell people, growing up, if I asked most people, I said, other than your parents or grandparents or maybe clergy, who had the most influence on you growing up? And it's almost to a person. You could say, this teacher here, this teacher there. Because I can name you every teacher I had from first grade through 12th grade. And that's been more than a couple of years. I couldn't tell you a half a dozen college professors that I had, graduate, undergraduate. And I said, I want to be somebody that they remember, not from an ego standpoint, because I know I made a difference. And so that's kind of always been my driving force is, they'll remember me, and for whatever reason. Yes. And that's important to me, is because then I said I made a difference, at least in that one person. And that's all we can ask for.
That is all we can ask for. And I love how you mentioned that morning prayer, because when I first started out in education, when I was still in K-12 education, that was something that I would say to myself every morning, just to have a positive impact on whoever, especially whoever needed it the most.
Yeah.
But that continues today. And I think if we, in leadership positions or ones of influence, if we just take the time to really become aware of that influence that we have, we would all be more impactful in what we do.
Well, and I had my wife was a speech and special ed teacher. And so that's even a special calling, I think, within educators. And so I watched her over the years, how she was committed to a group of students that oftentimes fall through the crack and are not representative. And she was a bulldog for those kids. Yes. And then my daughter also is an educator. And then my mother-in-law was an educator. So I said there were a lot of dominant females in my life that gave me a good path there and everything. But I think, you're exactly right. I remember one day a student came in and said, "Sir, can I bother you?" And I go, first off, the day that a student wanting to talk to me is a bother is the day that I will pack up my office and go home. That's because right. I've lost it. I said, and when I'm walking on campus or off campus and somebody, in fact, I was just at the Houston Astros game Saturday with my family, and I'm walking, somebody says, "Colonel Johnson," and I looked around. It was one of my fraternities, the president. He was there with a group of his buddies, and they said, "The Colonel's here. You got to go." So that always makes me feel good that they want to say hi. So I mean, that's another one of those reinforcing moments that you're going, yes. Yes,
I did something good. Something good. And to pivot just a bit more, you, with your background working with students here on campus and also just in the military working with young individuals, What are the similarities and what are the differences between mentoring students versus military personnel?
Well, I had an old boss once that he said, soldiers are like children. You got to love them all. Some are just harder to love than others. And I found that to be a true statement.
Yeah.
Same thing with students now and soldiers I had, is that there were some that you just kind of go, I don't know. And the next thing you know, they would get promoted or they'd be successful. In a student's case, you see them graduate and you went, okay, never give up hope. Never write off anybody. They write themselves off. I would never write off anybody, And so the other thing is that I discovered the value of listening. Mm-hmm. As the saying goes, the good Lord gave you one mouth and two ears. Use them accordingly. And that's one of the things that I've discovered. Sometimes people just want to have somebody listen, not provide comments, not provide ideals, and certainly not provide criticism, but just listen. And so that's something I picked up when I was a cadet here at A&M, the ability to listen. And I think I've continued, that is just sometimes just listen. And then if it's appropriate, provide guidance, provide information, or just sometimes going, you feel better? Yes, sir. All right. That's what I'm here for. And so, and I think that's the deal is that sometimes we think, well, we've got to answer the question. Well, you don't always have to answer the question. And sometimes you just got to listen. And I think that's an important thing. And in fact, I was teaching a class today on leadership, and I reminded the students how important is the ability to listen. And I mean listen. I'm not sitting there going, oh, yeah, okay. I'm sitting there on my computer or on my phone, or I'm doing 20 other things. You're the only thing that's important right now is your issue or your problem, because to you it is the most important. And if I don't give it that same degree of importance, then I've lost that opportunity.
Well, and you've minimized the relationship, and I think it's just a common fundamental human need to be seen and to be heard.
Yeah.
So acknowledging that is...
Well, and I'm a little uncomfortable saying this, but I'm going to, because of the nature of this, because I don't tell a lot of people this story. But I was in between classes one morning, and a young lady walked in and said, sir, can I sit down? Can I talk to you? And I said, sure, come on in. She says, I just want to thank you. I go, thank me? What do you mean? You saved my life. Mm. And I went, well, I said, sit down, excuse me? She says, I was in a very dark place, and I was considering some pretty extreme things. But the way you made me feel in class, the way you treated us in class made a difference. And I told I said, I was a soldier for almost 30 years. I like to think I saved a soldier. I can't tell you, but I know I at least have one student on my ledger. And that was one of those defining moments. And, and I almost didn't know how to respond other than, well, okay, you okay? And I'd follow up on her over the time. But, that's when I said, all right, God, I'm where you want me to be. I got it.
That is beautiful. And I think that obviously she meant that with all of her heart, every bit of her. Yeah. And to acknowledge that, and for someone to say that to you, I don't think there's any more greater gift that someone could give
There's
you.
no plaque, there's no award that anybody on this university could give me that if I left today, I would go, that was once why I was here. And that's the nice thing about it. And that was the same thing about being a soldier. It was, I was fortunate. I got lots of promotions. I got lots of awards, lots of recognition. But my satisfaction was seeing my soldiers, my officers succeed and do well. And that was, and somebody said, what do you miss the most when you retire? And it's like I remember talking to some professional athlete friends. They said, you can still go in the locker room, you can still talk to people, but you can't cross the chalk line anymore. Yeah. And that's the same thing that I've missed, is that I was part of a greater team. Yeah. And I missed being part of that team because that's such a unique experience that it's hard to describe to somebody that has not been in those kind of environments with people where, you know that somebody might not go home tonight. And so to be a part of that and to be that bonding of other, like-minded men and women,
Yes.
was a unique experience. And it's something that, that was a gap that was missing. And like I say, now because I didn't find it in industry. Industry was a job, made lots of nice money. But as one of my friends said, is this your job or your passion? I went, ooh, that one hurt.
Yes.
Because it was. I said, this was my job. Being a soldier was my passion. Being a professor is now my passion. Mm-hmm. So that's the fun part is, as I always tell my students, I said, I don't care how many zeros are at the end of that paycheck. If you're not enjoying it, you need to look for something else. I said, life's too short to just be drawing a paycheck. You ought to, have a passion for what you're doing. So I feel very fortunate that, most people get one passion in their life. And so I've had the good fortune to have two passions. And so I feel truly blessed.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of blessings, for those that have those same belief systems or similar belief systems, I think that when you have experiences such as that, or words touch you that way, or you receive messages that way, it's spiritual, and it touches you that way, and you do feel a sense of purpose in a way that no other accomplishment or opportunity has ever fed you, I'm sure.
No, and I look back that I know there's a master plan that put me here. Yes. When I look at things where I was disappointed that something didn't happen or an opportunity didn't happen, but it opened up another one, and it's like, oh my gosh, yep, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Is that and at the time, we have such a short vision sometimes. You're disappointed. You're going, man, I really wanted that position, or I really wanted that job. Yes. And I look, and it's, because the company I was working for in industry, the CEO called me one day and he goes, Mark, didn't you graduate from A&M? I go, yes, sir. Would you be interested in going back? And I joke, I hung up the phone, packed my office, said, I'm ready. And I knew that industry oftentimes has a short attention span, so the partnership was not going to last. But I said, on a leap of faith, I said, all right, at least I'm at A&M, and who knows, maybe something will work out. And about 18 months later, they called and they said, okay, you're coming back. And I went, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. So I contacted A&M, and they said, nope, you belong to us. And I was like, oh, God, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, but no, this is my home now. Okay,
so on a related subject, but rather stretched.
Uh-oh.
You used the word release. I was so eager to talk to you about your experience as a master parachutist.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And from your bio and your CV, you're quite recognized and accomplished in that area, so it is very impressive. And I've only had the experience of skydiving once.
Yeah.
And so to hear someone at your level and your mastery was thrilling to me. But whenever I hear the word release, and it takes me back to my experience of skydiving that one day.
Right.
Because there is such a release or a surrender that was unlike anything I've ever experienced. So as I make that stretch from this previous topic we were just talking about, but I feel like it's somehow related. Can you talk about your experience?
Sure.
In that
was,
area?
And I can still remember, and it's been, again, more than a couple of days there, is I'm on my first jump, and I was at the back of the what's called a stick, and that's a group of paratroopers that are going to jump. And in static line, we have a anchor line that runs the length of the aircraft, and so you hook up your static line, so as you go out, that's going to open up your parachute. And I'm sitting there, and I could feel the static line or the anchor line jerking as the people in front of me jumped. And I can still remember I going, this is real. You're about to do this. And then, exited the aircraft, that chute open, and, and the black hats, that's the name for the training NCOs, they said, airborne, that'll be the best looking skirt you've ever looked under. And it did. When I looked up and that parachute was there, and it was like, oh my gosh, I've done it. And then I remember before the 5th jump, because we're all saying, hey, if I break my leg, whatever, they still have to give us our wings because we've made 5 jumps. I mean, that was the mindset that we had because we had gone through too much. We were not going to miss this. And so, that was a big deal because, again, as I said earlier, that's what my brother had done. And so I wanted to be a paratrooper, so I got to do that. And then I decided that, I wanted to be a jump master, which is, a higher level. And then so I'm responsible for making sure that other people are safe. And so I, accomplished that school. And then I got to, earn my master parachutist wings. I also have Venezuelan and Ecuadorian wings because I did exercises with them. But the neatest thing is, my son graduated from airborne school. I got invited to be the guest speaker, and I got to pin his wings on.
Oh, full circle.
And came full circle. And that's something I never dreamed that I would have that opportunity. And it's another one of those that not everybody, there's a lot of people that just have what we call 5 jumps. They get their wings and that's all they do. And there's even a smaller number that are master parachutists. So that was something that was very important to me to accomplish that, because that said that I didn't just get my wings, I took it to the next level.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. And then because then the responsibility when you realize that I am the one that says you're ready to go. I have personally checked your equipment. And you learn that close enough is not good enough. I mean, it's got to be exact.
That's right. And
then when you put that person out of the aircraft, and to give you a funny story on that is there's 4 jump masters on an aircraft. There are 1 for each door, and then there's what we call a safety. We're non-jumping, but we help that jump master, and then we control the static line as the people go out. So like most Aggies, I'm wearing my Aggie ring at a time when I shouldn't be, but, you always wear your Aggie ring. And so it's a hot night, and all of a sudden I feel my ring starting to slip. Oh, no. And I go, if that thing goes out, I'll never find it. And I can't tell jumpers, wait a minute here, I've got to do my ring there and stuff. So all I can remember, I just squeezed as tight as I could, and I got the last jumper out, and then I, fixed my ring. And someone said, well, you didn't wear your ring again. I go, yeah, I did. Most Aggies, when it comes to, we don't learn. But I'd say is that, and again, it was a lot of neat experiences. I got to jump in some neat places. And, it's one of those, someone says, well, do you feel like you're cheating death? And I go, no. I said, the good Lord will call you when he's ready for you. He didn't, but it was a type deal of I was doing something that most people don't do with other people. So I said, these are the best trained people. These are the people that I want to go to war with. And you had common things and that you laughed about afterwards. At the time, it wasn't real funny.
Right.
But again, and for my son and I to be in that same family, that's our other family that, just the 2 of us share.
That's right.
Is something that's very unique. And then the fact that, like say, my brother, my son, and I all served in the 82nd Airborne Division. And so we jokingly call that the family business.
I love that. And please forgive me because this is no attempt to compare my situation with anything you have ever done or accomplished. But I love how you say that because in my one experience, I did it with my youngest son.
Okay.
So we have that to bond over. But I was driven to do it. But first of all, I'm terrified of heights.
Yeah.
So that was something I thought I would never do, but I wanted to force myself to do it because I wanted to conquer it.
I think you're. I mean, and again, I didn't necessarily have a fear of heights. It was just, again, this is something that I'm going to do.
Yes.
And and failure was not an option, as the
Not an
saying
option.
goes there, and everything. But when you are drifting, I mean, that is a unique experience that you cannot replicate in any other. I've been some beautiful places and done that, but man, when it's just you under that parachute and you realize, you're going, this is a pretty neat ride.
This is the glory.
Yeah.
I see a perspective I've never seen before. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's,
I completely agree. And, as I was telling somebody, I'd like to do it again. My wife says, no, you won't.
You've done your time.
Yeah, I've done my time.
Pin,
so, okay.
You've got your wings.
I can dream, I guess.
I love that. I want to know, and without getting political, that's not my intention at all, but as world events are occurring, and from your experience, I'm sure students have questions about your opinion of what's going on in the world, current events. But how do you, with your perspective, have those discussions with students?
Yeah, I try to keep it at a level so that I'm not, saying, well, this person didn't do,
Right.
As I try to, kind of give them, why is this important?
Yes.
Why should you care? And it's, and I say, for example, okay, significant number of wheat comes from Ukraine. So if they don't able to provide wheat, that's going to impact, bread and other type deals. Russia has a lot of precious minerals that are used to make electronics and other things. If those aren't available, then that's going to have an impact. And the oil, gas, in Europe and different things. So I kind of try to put it from that perspective of if they understand, because sometimes I think they're not as attuned to the world situation as you would like them to be sometimes. Yes. So again, I try to remain apolitical. I think they pretty much kind of know where my leanings are there and everything. But I try to help them understand why is this important, and why something that's happening halfway around the world is adding to the other problems that we're having, the lack of baby formula, the gas prices, the supply chain issues there and everything, so that everything, we don't live in just in our own little hemisphere, and so something that happens around the world can have a major, and so that understand, what is our national interest in certain areas and certain things that, we're not going to send troops into Ukraine, okay, but the fact that we've provided supplies and other things has allowed them, I think most people did not give them much of a chance that they were going to survive. And so I think that's become a good lesson for the rest of the world there, the freedom-loving side of the world there and everything, is that, these people are not fighting for land. They're not fighting for power. They're fighting for their nation. And that's a pretty powerful reason for somebody to sacrifice. And they've obviously sacrificed there and everything. And that, and it's been a long time since we've had that kind of challenge for us as a country. And I think we just, we need to remember that, is that, as the saying goes, freedom is not free. And a lot of great Americans over the years have made that ultimate sacrifice that allows us to enjoy that. And there's no guarantee. We have to maintain that. And so I think that's why it's important to understand why these things are going on, what's the impact on us, and why, why should I care? Well, here's why you should care. Because, I am disappointed in the whole political situation, is that, I remember there were a time where you and I could be on opposite ends, but we could have an adult conversation. We could give our points, and maybe at the end we still would say, well, we're just going to disagree, but hey, let's go have dinner.
Absolutely.
And we've lost that civility, and everything automatically goes into a name calling. If I don't agree with you, then therefore, you go put me in a box, And I said, we'll never have a conversation if you start, shutting those doors and putting people into boxes and just assuming that I'm this way or that way there and everything. And so, we're more divided as a country than I've seen us in a long time, and that's disappointing. And so, I'm not sure what's going to change that, but like I said, we've got to get back to where, again, we can have adult conversations and still be friends.
Absolutely. And it's so unfortunate because it seems to permeate every relationship. Even it may start as a discussion at this level, but it will affect every other relationship you have, which is so disappointing and unfortunate.
It is. And you find yourself walking on eggshells going, okay, don't want to say this or don't want to say this, or, how is he or she going to interpret that there and everything, as opposed to just having, a free conversation. We're going, well, I don't quite agree with that, but I can see where you're coming from. And I respect, your view. I disagree and I can't agree with that. But like I said, we can still be neighbors,
And are those some of the discussions you have with your students, just about how we're communicating with each other?
Yeah, I try to focus on that, here's how, because so many of those things then translate into other areas.
Yes.
I said, you're going to be dealing with somebody across the boardroom table that may not think like you do, and again, one of the simple ways I said, remember, we're Aggies. We do not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those that do. I'd like to tell you that's the rest of the world, but I'm going to tell you it's not. You will deal with people that will lie and cheat and steal and tolerate those. You still have to maintain your core values. And that, you may not can change the world, but don't let the world change you.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. And again, them hearing those messages from someone with your background is so critically important. You mentioned earlier, especially through our conversation, but before we began our chat, that you had just finished a class on leadership. What were the main talking points?
Well, it was a combination of helping people understand there's not one leadership style, that you have to be this way. And the fact that your leadership style is going to evolve and develop as you get more experience. Put a lot of emphasis on servant leaders. I'm a big supporter and believer in that style. That's kind of how I've tried to operate, being a servant leader there. But help people understand, okay, what do your people look for in you as a leader? And I said, the number one thing is always got to be honesty and integrity. If you do not have that, then really the other things aren't going to matter. That is such a foundational bedrock and I said, and if you lose it, it's almost impossible to get back. And so I know that, if you tell me we're going to go left, I know we're going to go left. Okay. And I may not understand why we're going left, but I know that if you, the leader, says going left, let's go. And that the other thing like I talked about earlier is the fun thing about being a leader is not the fact that you're on the top, your name is first, and you get the best parking place or whatever the case may be, but that you get to determine which way we're going to go, and you get to make sure that everybody crosses the finish line together. And I said, that's the important thing is in the military, we would have unit runs. And the intent is the unit finishes. And I had to learn that early is that I'm going to show everybody how fast I can run. And you look around, you're going, where is everybody? They're scattered out. And I'm going, and as a smart man told me, I said, this isn't about you. This is about the unit. That last guy in the formation should cross the finish line too. It doesn't mean, you slow it down so everybody, but you develop people so that they can get to that next level. And so that they do feel motivated that I can make this. I don't want to be the guy that falls out of formation. And so, I think that's one of the things that we learn in the military is that, life is a team sport. Mm-hmm. As I tell people, I said, pick good teammates and be a good teammate, because the journey up can be very lonely.
Yes.
And so I said, make sure you got friends, mm-hmm. and be a friend. That's right. And so yeah, it's and then what I do is then is what I call things that you're probably not going to learn in college, but you should have. Yeah. These are things that I wish somebody, when I was a college freshman or a senior, would have said, all right, Mark, here are the things you need to know, both your personal life, your professional life. And so I try to give them that, and so that they can, again, not just things that I need to know when I graduate, but here's some things that I can put into place, I can start using now. Because, that was one of the students were saying, well, I just get overwhelmed and I feel like I'm so far behind and I can't catch up. And I go, stop. Okay. My dad was a very smart man, and he used to use the saying, he goes, can't never could because he never would. And yes. Kind of like, I go, just do it. Okay. You may be behind, but you're going to be even further behind tomorrow or the next day or whatever. You're not going to close that gap. Yeah, you're not going to close that gap in a minute, but you just got to move the ball. Yes. You may move it an inch, you may move it a yard, but at least you're moving in the right direction, because it's never going to get fixed. You just sit there and go, oh, this is terrible, I'm behind, not going to happen. Because again, you got to take ownership. Mm-hmm. I can provide you knowledge, I can help you, but you've got to do it. And that's, so again, it's something I always enjoyed teaching that at whatever level. This is part of the SEC summer internship. This is the third year we've done this. And that's a lot of fun, because this gives me the opportunity to talk to students that otherwise I wouldn't, because they're from across the College of Engineering. And that's a fun for me, is that, I know my students in industrial distribution, but these are opportunity to make a difference for students that otherwise I may not, I may see them coming in and out of Zachary, but they wouldn't know me and I wouldn't know them. So that's a lot of fun.
No, I appreciate that. And you're already motivating me. I'm thinking, when can I sign up for his class? I love this. So, being aware of the time and trying to be respectful of that, I want to take one more turn with you.
Okay.
So you're a grandfather. Mm-hmm. You have
six. Yeah.
And what does being a grandfather mean to you?
It's the best job I've had in my life.
And I'm asking because I just recently became a grandmother. So tell me about your experience.
Yeah. The neat thing about being a grandparent is that, you get to, number one, you can kind of, pass on things, the legacy and stuff like that. But you're at a different level than a parent. Mm-hmm. As I had somebody told me one time, grandparents and grandkids both have the same enemy, the parent. And I go, okay, I kind of understand that. I don't necessarily an enemy, but I understand the concept there and everything. But, when one of my grandkids says, Grandpa, I miss you. Oh, God, makes me, all right, let's go. We're getting in the car. We're driving, and then like I told you, Saturday, I took my son, my grandson, and my son-in-law to the baseball game. That's what I gave them for Christmas. And to experience, that's the first time my grandson had ever been to a big league, and he's a big Astros fan. So to experience that through his eyes, I mean, as I was telling my daughter, I said, I think he ran the gamut from being overwhelmed to, I can't believe I'm here. This is so cool.
How old is he?
He is 7.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
So, so that was fun. Because like I say, I've got 5 granddaughters and 1 grandson. That poor boy doesn't have a chance. But and it's, the joke is, I'm the grandpa. My job is to spoil him, and I'm doing the best job I can there and everything. And it's just, it's fun because, your kids have grown up. They're older now. But it's kind of like you get to go back and kind of do some of the same things that you enjoyed with your kids in a little different way there and everything. And because, like I say, my grandfather died when I was young, but my grandmother was very important to me. And I think that's an important part of being a grandparent, is that, we can provide them information, and we're not as a regimented, threatening sometimes. If your parents said, you got to do this, you got to do, it's like, come here. Here's what you need to do.
Right.
This will make your mom happy. If you do it this way, your mom will be happy.
Those inside secrets.
Yeah, that little inside tips that, inside baseball that we're able to provide there and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it, and people saying, well, I know when we were first going to have a grandchild, and they said, what are you going to have them call you? And go, I just want them to call me.
Yes.
Hey, I don't care what they call me. I just want to be happy that they're calling me there and everything. And so it's, that's probably the one thing that I miss sometimes is, about the career that I had, is that my parents didn't get to spend as much time with my kids as I would have liked for them to do. They never complained. They never made me, but and it's not really a regret, but it's one of the things that I think my kids missed some opportunities, and I know my parents would have gained from spending time with my grandkids there, or with my kids there and everything. But it's again, my wife's parents are still alive, and so so I get to watch that interaction with my daughter and son with them, and then now with the great grandkids there and everything, and that's our legacy.
Absolutely.
And I've often said, we not only raise our kids, we really raise our grandkids. And somebody says, what do you mean? I go, well, kids don't come in with an owner's manual.
That's right.
The two spouses saying, well, this is what my parents did, and the other one said, well, this is what my parents did, and you kind of kludge that together, and you go, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And so then that's going to be their standard when they raise their kids.
That's right.
And so I think that, that's an important part of it, that you want to get it right. As I tell people, kids are like Halley's Comet. And they go, what do you mean? I go, well, Halley's Comet comes around once in our life. And that's basically the way your kids, because, over the years, I'd have friends say, well, when I retire, I'm going to spend more time with the family. And I go, when your son's 25 years old, he probably doesn't want to go out in the backyard and play catch anymore, Dad. Or your daughter's not going to be going to a recital or having a basketball game or whatever.
That's right.
And so I made it a policy, is that unfortunately I was gone a lot, because of my job. But I made sure that if I was in town, I was not going to miss an event, even if that meant that I had to go back and finish work later or bring work home and stay up when everybody went to bed, because I said, those are my kids, and I'm going to be part of their life. And one of the things that kind of brought that home to me, when we lived in England, I coached a baseball team, and we had military kids, and we also had local kids. And so I had one young man that never saw his parents. They just dropped him off and poof, and then somebody would pick him up. And so we're at the last game of the season, and and as you typically have to do, you have to play somebody so many innings, and they get a bat. So I put him in right field, the traditional place that in Little League you put somebody that's not as good as others. So we're ahead, and then so they get, I think, the bases loaded, and we got 2 outs, and somebody hits a screamer to right, and I go, this is it, it's all over. And he holds up his glove, and it was just like he caught it. And the look on his face was, first, I caught it, but I saw him look up in the stands, and there was no family to say, attaboy. And for that kid, that was probably the highlight of his athletic career.
Yeah. And
a parent not being there. I said, I almost started crying, because I said, my kids will never have that experience. I said, that's unacceptable. And so that was another thing that, that one of those aha moments there that, so I always made sure that I was there, couldn't be there for everything, but I made
Right.
sure that I was there. When and I was the obnoxious parent that's going, yes, that's my kid, good job. I remember my daughter was in a beauty contest and she won one of the sub deals, and I'm the father going, yes. I didn't know what she'd won, but that was my daughter and she won.
You just knew how excited they were and so happy.
Yeah.
So you felt that for them.
So that, and those, like I said, those are the fun things of being a parent and being a leader, is when those that either you have the joy of being their parent or the pleasure or privilege of being their leader, seeing them succeed. That's the fun part. It goes well beyond whatever I was able to accomplish or anything that recognition. And I'm not saying that to be Pollyannish or Joan of Arc or, Mother Teresa or any of those, but I truly believe that. And I've always tried to make that, it's about them. Absolutely. And I remember I had a sergeant one time that had tried several times for something and had failed. And he basically said, that's it, I'm out. And I went, Sergeant Blake. And like I say, I still remember his name. I said, we're going to try it one more time. Okay, and I'm going to help you. And when the commanding general pinned that award on him, man, I wouldn't have been any prouder if he was pinning it on me. And I still remember that. Like I said, is that the look on his face, and he kind of looked over me and kind of gave me that smile, and I went, yes, we did it.
I love that.
So.
Well, Colonel Johnson, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It has been a delight, an honor, and so illuminating. You've shared so much, and you have so much more to share that I'd love to have you back on and probably peek into some of your classes.
All right. This was fun for me, I tell you, is that hopefully I provided some insight that was valuable, is that I don't talk about myself. And but when I get into opportunities like this, it's fun for me to kind of relive some good memories there and everything, because I am truly blessed that I have lots of good memories, and I've had lots of great opportunities. That small kid growing up in Paris, Texas, never dreamed that I would get the opportunity. So again, I'm always available if I can be of any help. Hopefully this was helpful, and thank you for the opportunity.
It's just so wonderful, and you being so humble and all that you do. Thank you for stretching that, because to our audience and, of course, to me and our team, it means so much. We've learned so much. And to our audience, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you've listened to the entire conversation and all of our other conversations on all of our platforms. And like Colonel Johnson, let's all strive to live with a life of honesty and integrity, and lead with compassion and passion. Have a great day.